feed the algorithm as much data, as much information as possible. The way that you then manipulate your e-commerce side of it is to get more keywords into the feed. So whether that's additional product types or increasing description sizes or adding more values in from a color and material perspective, they're the elements that you want to pull in.
You're listening to the Keep Optimizing podcast to increase your traffic, improve your conversion rates, and grow your profits.
Hello and welcome. I'm Chloe Thomas, the host of this e-commerce marketing focused podcast. If you're not familiar with the Keep Optimizing format, well, every 5 episodes we switch our focus to a different marketing channel. Could be email or SEO or Facebook ads, and we pick up the thread from the last time we covered it. And in each episode, we release a new one every single Wednesday. I interview a different expert to explore one of the latest ways on making that marketing method work for you. At the moment, we are picking up the Google Ads thread. We've had a couple of episodes live already about it, and this is the 3rd one. And in this one, we are exploring a much neglected area of Google Ads optimization, your product feed. My guest is going to be taking us into the nuts and bolts of how to optimize your product feed. Yes, what software to use and all those kind of things. Lots of tips around what to do with the feed once you've got your optimization method set up. And we'll also be looking at what might be coming down the tracks and why now is the year to really get your head around feed optimization if you haven't yet done it already. I found this chat with Danny thoroughly interesting, and if I was managing feeds at the moment, I think I'd listen to it at least twice to make sure I got all his tips. So I think you're really going to like this one. And as always, make sure you listen to the end of the episode so you don't miss out on his insider tips and my take on it all and a couple of other resources that I'll be sharing with you too. Have you yet downloaded the 500 Top Tips to Make Your E-Commerce Business More Profitable ebook? Packed with 500 top tips about how to make your e-commerce store more profitable. I've organised the whole thing into sections so you can dip in and dip out and take inspiration as and when you need to. This ebook exists to be there on your desktop or even printed and sat on your desk. Download your free copy right now at keepopt.com/ebook. Get this epic e-commerce ebook now at keepopt.com/ebook. In this episode, I'm chatting with Google Ads expert Danny Ireland. Danny's head of paid media at award-winning agency Launch and an expert in all things Google Ads. He's ex-Google and now heads up a team of 20 performance marketing experts driving e-commerce sales and profits for brands like Weirdfish, Primrose and Iceland Air. Hello, Danny.
Hi, Chloe. How are you doing?
I'm good. Really glad to have you here. I've wanted us to do an episode on this topic for ages, so I'm really pleased you put it forward as one for us to get into. Before we get into that topic, though, how did you end up in the world of Google Ads?
It kind of a weird way. I'd never worked in it previous to, well, that's kind of always the case, but I'd not really understood how it worked or what it was. Previously worked in sport, doing sales in various football or rugby and darts, and needed a change. Had a change, left a job, nothing to go to, and saw a job advertised, and it was for Google, and I was like, okay, let's try this, and that's how I got into it. Went to a couple of interviews, lucky enough to pass through the stages there, and 3.5 years at Google, working on their managed agency program, working with agencies like Launch, and then moved to Launch. And 7 years later, been at Launch and helped grow the agency.
I'm going to guess that's quite an unusual route into Google Ads, that you started, your first experience of Google Ads was at Google working on Google Ads. Because I don't think most it's like they've got some experience before they end up in Google a lot of the time.
Yeah, I think my first experience was preparing for an interview to understand what it was. So yeah, I think some of the questions that you may ask later on, I think about advice for beginners, kind of been there, done that, and gone through it with no understanding whatsoever of what an impression share is, or click share, or even what a keyword and how it worked. It was at the start.
But it also goes to show that you can, if you apply yourself in Google Ads, it is something where the mysteries can quite quickly evaporate away if you spend the time learning and optimizing and using the tool, you can get familiar with it relatively quickly.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest learning for me would be spend time in the interface and understand the metrics, understand what's there, know the what a click is, what an impression is, how one affects one affects another, or how other metrics then fall into place and then build the story off the back of the data. Having worked in football where you sell a front of the shirt advertising sponsorship slot and a client's asking you how many people did it see, it's kind of finger in the air type situation. And there is companies out there that will value sports like that. But I do very much like the transparency of paid media, of you pay for that, this is the eyeballs, these are the clicks, these are the people to the website. And then with tracking, it takes it all the way through to be able to understand what investment happened and what the output or the conversion and the revenue or goal is that you've achieved.
I totally agree with you. Love the trackability of it all. Well, let's talk data. You're kind of wheedling us into data, and data is kind of our topic for this. Feed optimization. Is it as important as it's always been? Is it more important? How much should we care about optimizing our Google Shopping feed?
You definitely should care about it. I think the interesting thing is it's probably got more important. I think as time's gone on, I think the times of just creating a Shopify website or a WooCommerce back, and other platforms, Magento, etc. We have seen a shift more to Shopify just for ease of use and the amount of add-ons that you can add into that and the ability to flex other areas of the business. But from a feed perspective, yes, more data into the feeds can provide the paid media and the SEO side a valuable data source to drive the right traffic effectively. That's what it's about.
And is your recommendation, possibly getting too techie here, Danny? So if you want us to, pull back and talk to go in another direction, more than happy for you to do that. You are the expert. But what for me, as soon as we start talking about feeds, I'm immediately like, right, am I adding this data to my website and direct integrating to Google Merchant Center? Am I using a third-party optimization tool, or am I downloading it, playing with it in Google Sheets, and then re-uploading it on an occasional basis? The caveat being only if you've got a handful of SKUs are you allowed to do that last option.
2 out of 3 that potentially have that. So the one that I would not advise would be just the straight put the website there and then direct it via to paid media. Click and forget. You've kind of built it. You've kind of done nothing with it. And that's the bit where we see that especially even Shopify or all the other platforms, they don't, the mapping of it is not 100% usually when you see it out of the box. It doesn't work like that. So, when you look at a Google feed within the Merchant Center, understanding the attributes that sit there behind it, whether it's the color, the material, the size, they're coming through blank, and they're the bits where that's the traction, and that's especially they're the 1%, in performance metrics that you've got to look at. I think if you look at Google Shopping and how that's evolved from a standard Google Shopping structure when I first started in Google to the smart shopping evolution that came into it, and then now to PMax, where everybody was kind of, don't want to go down this road and leave it to a black box situation. There's still levers to pull, but we as an agency always saw the levers sat there within the feed, understanding what data's coming out of it. So we as an agency, am I allowed to plug other softwares that we rarely saw?
You can mention softwares.
Yeah, so we as an agency, we use Shoptimized as our feed management tool. So we scrape it in from Shopify, runs into Shoptimized, and then we do all our magic within there in terms of what we're wanting to manipulate the data, add the data in, add GTINs in there, SKUs in there, add in, test with product title structures, and then all the other metadata that sits within the back of it to be able to then twist it to be able to help us build a structure within Google Ads. And that's not just within Google Ads. We're talking Microsoft, we're talking feeds out to Pinterest, feeds out to Meta as well. So when we get that feed in, one size doesn't really fit all, because what we will do is manipulate a master sheet and then cut and slice it as we want for different platforms, for different goal metrics, and for different outcomes that we're trying to get.
So there's kind of 3 big reasons why you don't want to go direct website to whatever the engine is you're sending it into. One being you want to be able to test stuff, which would involve a lot of laborious work on your website. Two, you want to be adding in more data because you've got stuff that probably isn't on the website that you want to be providing in. Three, you want to map things correctly and customize it for each engine. And then I suppose actually I'm going to go to four. Four being you probably don't want the exact same format of information as you want for your website as you do for your Google feed. I mean, it's not good if you are trying to optimize your website for your shopping feed. You should be optimizing your website for conversions and customer experience and optimizing your Google feed for your Google feed.
Yeah. So your structure on your website is never the structure that you're really going to put in place on a Google, and I'm talking about like title descriptions, what it says on the title, that somebody that's landed on the website that knows the brand, that is returning a returning customer, or has come organically or through social where they've maybe seen a product and they kind of know the name of it and they do a search. When you look from a Google Ads perspective on what you're trying to do from a shopping, that title's going to be changed. And also then play around with it. Does it need branding there? Does it not need branding there? Does it need to go at the front, need to go at the back? Those changes can be a lot easier when you're running a software where you can set rules to state title is brand forward, pipe, name, product, size, whatever, and how it goes through that way. That being able to set that up and standardize it, I think right at the start of a journey we would with a client, that would be the bench, the foundations that we start with, to be honest. Yeah.
Got you. And as we're sending this data into Google Ads and looking to optimize it for the Google platform, are we more interested in how it's going to appear like for like in Google Shopping, or are we more interested in how the data influences what happens in PMax and the other automations? So is it more of a feeding the algorithm, or is it more of a making us look good on the shopping feed?
Feeding the algorithm would be my first port of call. Yes, definitely. Feed the algorithm as much data, as much information as possible. They're your keywords effectively. So if you understand, everybody knows how search works, type of product in, and the search ad shows. The way that you then manipulate your e-commerce side of it is to get more keywords into the feed. So whether that's additional product types or increasing description sizes or adding more values in from a color and material perspective, they're the elements that you want to pull in. But it also gives you then a baseline to be able to then start testing different versions of it. Further down the line, it might be where you're working with a client that sells jeans, that they go from wide leg to boot cut because of the industry, the fashion, what's happening at the time. How quick can you then change 30,000 SKUs of a pair of jeans really quickly? That's the other side of it as well. You want to be able to optimize it at speed, which is why, again, we use a software to be able to then find and replace or do large tasks.
And does this have, clearly it's having an impact on how your products appear in the organic part of Google Shopping, and it's having an impact on the performance of your Google Ads activity. Is this playing into any of the ChatGPT, various LMMs even? I do know what I'm talking about, everyone, I promise. Is it playing into any of that? Is Gemini using this data? What's happening on that side of things at the minute?
Yeah, the LLMs, that's a tough one to say. They are definitely using this data. That's the only place that they're going to get this data from. I know there's talk of it scanning websites and things like that, but this is going to be the biggest source of getting the data, is working with Google in partnership to be able to access the feeds and the data that sits behind it. The one thing that Google won't do is they're not going to do anything that's going to hamper any revenue from their side. That a majority of a big chunk of Alphabet's revenue is from search. So anything that they're not going to do, I think the worry out there is that LLMs are going to come in and then people are stopped going to Google to search for products. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think there's going to be probably a research focused phase on it and an insight into finding the brands and the products that they like, but then taking that into a different platform or potentially going direct to websites where they can look from LLMs would be the interesting side of it. I think Search Engine Land did a piece last week where they were stating that some of the traffic coming from those platforms were less engaged than SEO users that come in organic and other platforms. So yeah, it's an interesting one. It's still not a massive amount of search as well. I think that's to bring it back down to earth a bit. And I think it's always the worry. I think everybody in marketing sees something and we think, right, we've got to have our say and our agencies say and my personal opinion and as a brand, what do we do about this? But I don't, understand it, know what's going on, and then there's nothing really to action yet, but there is to get your data right, I think.
Oh, definitely. And yeah, I agree. I suspect there's plenty of people at the moment waiting to see ChatGPT come up as a referring source on their analytics so they can write a blog about it. I think we're at that stage, aren't we, in the journey at the moment? So where does optimizing your feed fit in with optimizing your bids, your creative, the other things we're doing normally within the actual Google Ads console? How, is it part of our normal week-to-week, day-to-day optimization? Is it something you only tackle at a certain point? How does it fit into our overall optimization piece?
So you've got two ways of looking at this. I think there's one way of, yes, you've got a testing framework that you're running through and you are for a month or 2 months. I think it all depends on budget and volume of data that you're getting. Again, that the keywords data, the more data that you can give it, the faster things can learn. That's any platform from a paid media perspective is that's going to be the best key. So once you've got the data there, yes, you can start making testing changes on titles and descriptions. I think from a bids and budget perspective, I think it comes down to, from my experience, it would be a structure set and an automation side of it that we would look at. So, and by automation, I'm thinking what we do with Shoptimized, we API back the results back from Google Ads. So clean data, make sure Google Ads is working right, make sure the conversions and the revenue are there. And what we really want to know is what products are performing at a high level from a conversion perspective, or is a highest margin product, or has got a really good ROAS. And then we can start structuring the campaigns and the optimizations to kind of self-learn in a sense, and also self-populate. So a basic version of this could be that we have a high campaign with products that we really want to put our money behind. I always explain it as like a betting term. Gambling, you want to put the money behind the products that are going to sell the most or sell the revenue, if that again is the goal that you want it to go, or you go down a margin route and look for performance. But the Shoptimize, that's why we again use Shoptimize, because that is handling all that data coming back. So not only are we taking the data in from a feed perspective, we're also passing it to the merchant center and into Google Ads, and that is coming back the other way for us to manipulate it and then go, right, this is now the structure that we're going to push after to try and gain revenue, increase performance.
Got you. So very much integrated with the rest of your optimization activity. And I'm guessing that for anyone who's listening to this going, oh, never occurred to us to optimize the feed, and who's about to go crazy with feed optimization, if you've kind of neglected the feed for the last couple of years, but done loads and loads of testing with your PMAX and with your other campaigns, would it be fair to say you pretty much have to redo all that in AdWords optimization again, or revisit some of the things you previously ruled out if you improve the quality of your feed by 20%?
If you've got the results that are working now, I think you can kind of stand still in terms of a structure. And I'm not saying wholeheartedly you have to change everything that you've done, but I'd definitely take, okay, this is what we've done. These are the learnings for the last 3-4 months on that structure, and this is where we are. Now let's optimize the feed for 2 months. Does that make incremental gains? I think that's where I'd be looking at it from that perspective. There might be a point where you get to it and go, I need to do both at the same time. But I think if you've done one rather than the other, then now is the time to start looking at that feed and making those changes. And it may be a test where you remove brand from the title and don't have it there. Does it still hold the same weight and click-through rate that you're trying to get? And does CPC change? Does the cost change on that side of it as well? They're all tests that it's worth trying with the current structure in place.
Well, and presumably you could do a complete A/B split test where you, with what's in the feed, you improve 50% of it and you don't improve the other 50% of it, and you see if that affects things.
Yeah, see, I'm a details guy here, so I'm now asking in my head, what's the structure and how are you building it? And yeah, I now want to know, is it jeans and t-shirts, or is it like what are we trying to do? And I think that's the bit, yeah, that you start looking at.
Yeah, splitting it in half is not as easy as I suggest at all. Now, does the whole AI Max for search thing fit in with feeds as well, Danny? Because that's one of those things that's new, fairly newly announced. I think it's currently in beta, so a few people have got hands on it. Does this have an impact with your feed as well? I'm assuming it does because it's got the word Max in the title, but...
So, not really. It's more research-led, but what it is doing is taking Performance Max, the elements of that side of it. So the standard shopping where you keywords in to now PMax, where you're putting audience data in there and it is using all the data within the product feed. The AI for search is taking your search side of it and toggling a button and going, okay, I'm now allowing Google to look at the website, find other pages on the website and find new keywords and search and be able to show for more search terms and increase that volume by just toggling on a setting. Now, whether that's going to be the right thing or the wrong thing, I think Google is stating that it's testing really well at the moment in time. So again, I think testing for this year, like 2025, our buzzword as an agency is test everything. Like, just, you can't stop not testing whatever's there, whether it's creative, ad copy, structure changes, bids, budgets. Just test as much as you can.
Yeah, no assumptions, people.
No.
Don't assume anything's going to work. Do that testing. Have we missed anything, Danny, about taking us back to feeds rather than AI Max for search? Have we missed anything that people need to know about feed optimization?
The biggest thing for me, I think, going down that automation route and understanding, okay, how does the structure benefit the goals? So if it is we want to hit a ROAS number of X, how do we then get that there? How do we make sure that the products are not just achieving that, but outperforming that? And also understanding, looking at your data in the platform and going, okay, how many of those products are achieving that ROAS target that we've set? And how many are falling below? And then one of the sayings I have with the team is kind of like budget per product per day. So looking at the overall budget, so if you've got £1,000 and then you've got 1,000 products that you're in there, it's not 1,000 divided by 1,000 and going, okay, we've got £1 a product. You're trying to sell those 1,000 per day. So it's 1,000 divided by 30, then divided by 1,000. And does that work? Probably not. So that's when you start then looking at the amount of products and the SKU numbers that are in there. Do we need to scale that back? Do we need to start with really your best sellers? I always take it with a pinch of salt when I speak to a client and I go, these are our best sellers. And it's like, okay, thanks. Let's see what actually works within the data. I know you're telling me they're your best sellers, but I want to know what really drives the revenue from our side. And it might be that we find Trojan horses, so products that people don't buy, or in garden furniture at the moment, we're seeing, we did see over the last summer, definite a spike in people looking for more expensive products, but then purchasing the cheaper ones. And it's probably not going back to COVID, we definitely didn't see that trend coming out of COVID, especially when people couldn't travel and their travelling budget suddenly become, I'm going to spend £3,000 on a new garden furniture set because the weather's great and we'll just sit in the garden now that we can't go on holiday. That's now changed again. So it's understanding the trends and seeing those products that you can make sure the budget's behind, and also understanding, okay, these are best sellers, but when they're not getting seen, how do you then take those invisible products? Google like to call them zombie products. It's a bit of a buzzword that they've keyed for probably the last year or so. How do we take those products and get them visibility as well? So there's a lot of strategic decisions that you have to make behind your budget, the amount of SKUs that you've got, and then the structure that you're trying to run based on an automated version of label this. If products hit X ROAS or X conversions, they fall into this bucket with a budget and a ROAS target of that. And then you might end up, it can grow as well. I think that's the other thing. You'll start small and then start scaling.
Yeah, start small, everybody. That's the test everything, start small, and then see where the numbers take you. Danny, thank you so much for giving us so much insight into feed optimization with Google Ads. Listeners, remember to stay tuned right to the end, because coming up very soon are Danny's insider tips on Google Ads and my suggestions for more free resources to help you improve things even further in your businesses. Have you yet downloaded the 500 Top Tips to Make Your E-Commerce Business More Profitable ebook? Packed with 500 top tips about how to make your e-commerce store more profitable. I've organised the whole thing into sections so you can dip in and dip out and take inspiration as and when you need to. This ebook exists to be there on your desktop or even printed and sat on your desk. Download your free copy right now at keepopt.com/ebook. Get this epic e-commerce ebook now at keepopt.com/ebook. Okay, Danny, so far we've gone deep into shopping feed optimization. Now you get to wow us with your insider knowledge about the whole of Google Ads. So for the following questions, your answer can be anything to do with Google Ads, which of course does include all the things we've already been talking about. So Danny, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, let's start with newbie advice. If we've inspired someone to take their first step, what do they need to know to give themselves the best chance of success?
Personally, self-learning. I think building it, sitting in the interface, I think is the best way to start, is understanding all the metrics that are there that you're expected to know, what a click-through rate is and what it's made up of. Impressions divided by clicks gives you a percentage, and to be able to just know that, and impression shares, and there is so many columns and hidden columns that when you first look at the interface can be scary. I think the first time I ever saw the interface with actual real data in it and an account, I was like, oh my God, I have, what is this? But yeah, I think it's asking, like looking at those metrics and understanding them. And then the second point would be getting in the interface to have a look at it and knowing, try and self-build. I think when I first got into it, before that interview that I did, it was I built an ads account for my parents' business. They didn't go live. I didn't have to put bank details into it, but I knew a business that I was like interested in. And I think it's always something that when new team members have joined the agency or we're doing an interview or like now, the question to newbies, take a brand that you love, that you care about, that you it could be a clothing brand, it could be anybody, it could be Nike. Replicate, build an ads account around that ad and around that brand and look at what you think would work and go through the interface yourself and do that. And then I think once you get into that position, then start asking enough questions. I think the question side of it is always, again, something that somebody new to us, I would always, no silly questions. Every question's fair game, just because if you don't ask questions, I'm expecting that you already know that the question that comes down the line 3 to 6 months later. So ask and ask and ask and take as much in.
Love that. Yeah. No stupid questions at all. Only from me, but not this one. This one's a good question. Now, once you've started, of course, you've got to keep optimizing. So what's your favorite way to improve performance?
My favorite one from an e-commerce perspective would be understanding the amount of products that drive the revenue. I think that's always it's a fun one to do. I find, especially when you're in an audit situation, to be able to go back to a client or a potential brand to say, you do know that 12% of your product feed gives you 95% of the revenue, and they've got 10, 15, 20,000 SKUs in there. And it's like, oh, so what are the rest doing? And then they're not getting visibility. They've not got traction. I think that would be the first thing I'd work out to understand, okay, what is your actual real ROAS on your top high performing products? And that will give you a really good metric of that. Budget per product per day is my little go-to that I do like. It's understanding how much you're actually trying to put behind a product. And yeah, it's scary sometimes when you do those maths, and I think you come out at some products I've seen or some brands I've worked with have been like 0.001 per product per day. It's you're not going to get the traction that you want. Because if it was easy and you were stood in a casino in Las Vegas and you were putting every £50 you put in, it just give you $100 back. You just sit there all day doing that, and that'd be easy. And it's not as easy as that as well. I think that's the other side of it.
Love your advice there. Thank you, Danny. Now, if someone listening wants to learn more, is there one cheap or free resource you could recommend?
Google's always a great start. I think Google have got a really good training course and a learning program within there. I think we always make sure that the team are doing the right resources and making sure that they've got all their accreditations from Google. Questions can be interesting, can be silly sometimes, or very Google related. I think the questions will be, but I think some of the videos as well, some of the YouTube videos and the content on the websites, and also our website. I'll have to plug our own website, but we've got some good resources on there. So we did an event back in March, CMO's Guide to Performance Marketing, that you can sign up and you can download the content from there and all the talk. So yeah, that'd be really good one.
And what is your website?
So our website is launchonline.co.uk.
Easy as that. Okay, finally, crystal ball time. What's coming up in the next 6 to 12 months that we should be getting ready for?
Would it be right if I didn't mention AI? I think we've gone 27 minutes without talking AI. I think AI is going to be an interesting one, I think, for this year. I think using it right, it's going to be the right way. I think from an e-commerce perspective, how can that affect your visual representation on Google Ads from an image creation? Google have got into it, Microsoft are going into it, Meta want to get into it, and how using that for background imagery is going to be an interesting way. I think Search Max is going to be an interesting one as well, using that ability to do that side of it. And then LLMs, there's going to be definitely an increase on there, I think, of what we're going to see in the new tech side of it that could improve shopping. I don't think it's going to decrease anything. I don't think it's going to affect search so much. I think it's just going to enhance what we've got. So it might be that you have to think around the data and what you've got in your feeds to how it can improve those other areas. That would be the other bit that I'd look, and trust the platforms. Like none of the ads platforms are going to shoot themselves in the foot and do anything that's going to risk revenue from ad income. So this talk of it gaining traffic from over here, that's fine, but there's going to be definitely a way in from an ads perspective.
Ooh, interesting. Like your take on all of that, Danny. Thank you so much. Now, one very, very last question for you, which is if someone wants to get in contact with you or the team at Launch Online and find out more about how you could maybe help them with their Google Ads, how do they get in touch?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Danny Ireland, Head of Performance Media at Launch. And then, launchonline.co.uk is the website.
Excellent. There you go, everybody. That's how you get in touch with Danny and the Launch team. Danny, thank you so much for being on the Keep Optimising podcast and shining a light on what is way too neglected a skill set in the world of Google Ads. So thank you so much for coming and talking about it.
Thank you for having me on.
Oh, what a cool dive into the world of feed optimization. If you are, key message here, if you are taking your data from your website and feeding it directly into Google Ads, aka the merchant center that you have to feed your product data field into, you are doing it wrong. You've got to enhance it, right? There's lots and lots of different tech out there you can use to enhance it. You can even do the Google Sheet manual one if you want to, but there's clearly so much opportunity there, both pulling the data back in as Danny and his team are doing, so they can do optimization within that third-party tool that then feeds it all back into Google Ads, and just generally improving the quality of the information you're feeding into Google to improve the performance of your PMAX campaigns and beyond. So loads of cool stuff to get you thinking, loads of cool things for you to do, thanks to Danny there as well. You can get the links to all the things we discussed, the full transcript of the episode, important notes and more at keepoptimising.com. You can also use our special direct to episode short links. Just put keepopt.com/ the number of this episode into the URL bar and you'll be redirected straight to the correct page on the site. When you get to the website, why not join our email list so you don't miss out on any of those other things we share to help you improve your business. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Keep Optimising podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, then check out episode 259, which is only 2 before this one, where I'm catching up with the team at Digital Gearbox who are taking us through their 5 do's and 5 don'ts of Performance Max optimization, which obviously is going to help you build on what you've learned in this episode as well. You can also find all our Google Ads content by using the short link keepopt.com/Google Ads to take you to a page on the site where we list out all our episodes about Google Ads. Please do tell your fellow marketers about the show because I want to help as many marketers as possible to improve the performance of their e-commerce marketing. Have a great week and make sure you listen to the next episode so I can help you to keep optimizing your marketing.
Access everything Keep Optimizing at keepoptimising.com. That's with an S, not a Z.
Have you yet downloaded the 500 Top Tips to Make Your E-Commerce Business More Profitable ebook? Packed with 500 top tips about how to make your e-commerce store more profitable. I've organised the whole thing into sections so you can dip in and dip out and take inspiration as and when you need to. This ebook exists to be there on your desktop or even printed and sat on your desk. Download your free copy right now at keepopt.com/ebook. Get this epic e-commerce ebook now at keepopt.com/ebook.